There is a moment after she goes when the room does not simply feel empty, it seems to listen. The chair, the door, the quiet air become a chorus of reminders, and your chest tightens as if the world itself has been cinched one notch too tight. We are tempted to treat this ache as a malfunction, as if sorrow were a bug in the system that needs urgent repair. But pain, like thunder after lightning, is the honest sound of something real that has happened. Notice how the mind rushes to build stories. If only I had said this. If only she had done that. Yet these counterfactuals are like trying to rearrange waves after they've already struck the shore. The past is not a room you can redecorate. What you can do is watch the tide within you, this push and pull of grief and longing, and discover that the watcher is not drowning. You are not the storm. You are the sky in which the storm appears. We confuse closure with control. We demand explanations to satisfy the restless accountant in the head, tallying debts of affection and apologies. But explanations, even the perfect ones, cannot unhurt a heart. They only name what has already moved on. The deeper medicine is gentler, to feel without resistance. Let the ache be exactly what it is. Let tears be fresh water washing a wound that knows how to knit itself when not picked apart. The pain of her leaving is not proof that you are unworthy. It is proof that you were open. Hurt is the shadow cast by love's light. To avoid one would be to forfeit the other. So sit, breathing, and meet the ache like an old friend who brings difficult news with tenderness. Ask nothing of it but honesty. In that quiet, you begin to sense a subtle turning. The center you lost was borrowed. The attention you gave away is returning, step by gentle step, like dawn entering a dark room without knocking. Do not rush this. Healing is not a race, but a ripening. The fruit does not demand the sun, it trusts the season. And as you trust this season, the pain will reveal its secret. It came not to break you, but to break the shell that kept you small. We speak of closure, as if the heart were a door that could be shut with a satisfying click. But notice, the desire for closure rarely seeks peace, it seeks control. The mind imagines a final conversation, the perfect explanation, the apology shaped like a key. Yet even when keys are found, new doors appear. Questions breed like vines. Why did she leave? Becomes, why did she come at all? And then, what was wrong with me? Closure, pursued as a destination, recedes like the horizon. Consider the ocean. No single wave closes the sea. It rises, curls, dissolves, not into an ending, but into continuing. Your feelings move the same way. The ache, the anger, the sudden laugh at a memory. Each is a wave. When we insist on closure, we try to freeze the water mid-crest, to capture a living movement and turn it into a photograph. But life is not a museum, it's music. And the music does not end by holding the last note longer. It ends by being played through with attention. We confuse understanding with undoing. If only we knew the reason, we think, the pain would recede. Yet reasons are tidy stories told about messy realities. She may have left from fear, confusion, habit, or 100 silent pressures. Knowing the label does not quiet the room at night. The knot we want to untie is not in the past. It's in our resistance to what is. Paradoxically, the knot loosens when we stop yanking. Here is a small experiment. Sit with the unfinishedness. Feel how the body wants to lean forward to chase the missing sentence. In that leaning there is strain, and in the strain, suffering. Now gently lean back into breath, into the chair, into the immediate fact of being alive. Let the unanswered question be a bell ringing in a wide valley. You don't need to silence it. You only need to hear it fully. When heard, it becomes part of the landscape rather than an alarm. Closure is not something she gives you. It is something that arises when you stop bargaining with reality. It is the soft authority of acceptance, not the hard gavel of a verdict. And acceptance is not resignation. It is the moment you trust that life continues without the tidy bow, that your worth is not on trial, and that meaning can grow from soil even when the story feels incomplete. The truth is simple and liberating. You are allowed to move on with questions still open. The flower does not wait for a theory of sunlight before it turns toward the sky. Neither must you. We think people leave because of us, as if our worth were a switch they flipped off on the way out. But look closer. Each of us moves according to an inner weather, a climate of fears and hopes we barely understand. When she walked away, it was less a verdict on your value and more a forecast of her storm. Consider intimacy as a mirror. To be loved is to be seen, and to be seen is to be confronted with oneself. Some find that revelation too bright. Love says, here you are without disguise. If you have been living by masks, strength, indifference, charm, that light can feel indicting. So people close the curtain and call it freedom. It is not your light that wounded her eyes. It is her unready pupils. There is also the rhythm of old habits. Some hearts are tuned to the music of pursuit, not presence. The chase is exciting. The having feels unfamiliar. Security can feel like silence to someone accustomed to noise. In that quiet, they hear their own echoes and mistake them for emptiness. So they leave, not because there is nothing, but because there is finally space, space they do not yet know how to inhabit. Timing plays its trick. Two rivers may run side by side and never meet until the rains. You were ready to build. She was learning to name her tools. Readiness is not a moral rank, it is a season. Winter is not wrong for being cold, but it cannot host spring's flowers, no matter how sincerely it promises. And there is fear, fear that love will demand surrender, of control, of narrative, of the familiar pain that strangely has become a home. Many would rather keep what hurts than risk what heals, for healing changes the story, and the story has been their identity. To step into a new chapter asks them to die to the old one, and most of us resist small deaths even when they promise larger life. None of this excuses harm. Understanding is not the same as agreement, but it does loosen the grip of self-blame. Her departure speaks more about her conversation with herself than about any deficiency in you. You offered a harbor, she was still learning the sea. So let the mind stop auditing every moment for what you should have done. You cannot organize another's inner weather. You can only keep your hearth warm. If she could not stay, it is because the work she needed to do could not be outsourced to your love. Take comfort in this. You did not fail at love. You simply reached the boundary where her capacity ended. When you see this clearly, something softens. You stop arguing with the tide and start learning to swim with it. Compassion arises, not the kind that invites the same wound, but the kind that bows to reality and says, may you find what you seek. And in that bow, you find what you were seeking all along, the quiet dignity of knowing your love was real and that its truth does not depend on anyone staying. Healing rarely announces itself with trumpets. It begins in small, almost embarrassing ways. You forget to check your phone. You make tea and actually taste it. For a minute or two, you are not auditioning for the past. This is the quiet rebellion, the moment attention turns from the closed door to the open window. Notice how you once waited as if salvation were inbound. An apology, a message, a contrite return. Waiting is a clever disguise for clinging. It keeps the story alive by postponing the ending. But endings do not need your permission. They arrive, and the compassionate act is to bow. When you bow to what is, you are no longer a hostage of what was. That bow is the hinge on which your life swings forward. Healing begins when you stop negotiating with yesterday. The mind loves to haggle. If I understand, I'll release. If she returns, I'll relax. But life moves the other way around. You relax, and understanding grows. You release, and what is truly yours returns in a different form, often not a person, but your own presence. Try this simple practice. Feel the breath as if you were discovering it for the first time. Inhale, and let the ache come along without commentary. Exhale and feel the ground do its ancient work of holding you. Do this not to get better, but to be honest. Honesty with yourself is the first stitch in any mending. The body is wiser than the bargaining mind. It knows how to knit torn places if you keep your hands gentle. You began to heal the moment you stopped using pain as proof. For so long, the ache testified against your worth. Now it testifies to your capacity, to love, to risk, to be touched by life. Hurt is not an indictment, it's a credential. It says you showed up. And showing up, even bruised, is how the soul grows strong enough to carry its own light. Another sign appears. You start choosing what nourishes rather than what distracts. The late night scroll becomes a walk at dusk. The lament turns into a paragraph in your journal, then a playlist that lifts, then a call to someone who knows how to listen without fixing. You realize support is not weakness, it's architecture. Cathedrals stand because they learned the art of bearing weight together. There is also forgiveness, not the sentimental kind that invites old harm back in, but the sober kind that frees your hands to build. You forgive yourself for the ways you begged, pleaded, or performed. You forgive the version of you that mistook survival for love. In that absolution, dignity returns like tide claiming the shore. The paradox is beautiful. Healing began when you stopped trying to heal, when you ceased treating your heart as a project and treated it as a guest. You offered it tea, a blanket of breath, a window with morning light. And somewhere between an inhale and an exhale, the guest stood up, thanked you, and became the host. You are home now, not because she came back, but because you did. There comes a subtle hour when you realize you are no longer orbiting her memory. The gravity has reversed, not because you hardened, but because you softened correctly toward yourself. You stopped feeding the story with constant attention, and like any neglected fire, it dimmed. This is the power shift. Not dominance over another, but freedom from dependence. In the old arrangement, your mood was a weather report issued from her sky. A text could bring sunlight, silence, a storm. You called that love, but it was bartering. You traded your peace for the possibility of being chosen. Then something simple and revolutionary occurred. You began to choose yourself without ceremony. You ate well, you slept, you moved your body, you kept promises to yourself the way you used to keep them for her. The nervous system took note. Stability, once outsourced, found a home address. Power returns the moment attention returns. Where attention goes, energy flows. Where energy flows, reality grows. When your attention belonged to her absence, lack proliferated. When your attention turned to your presence, life began to bloom in ordinary places. The cup of coffee, the task well done, the friend who meets you in truth rather than performance. The world didn't change, your participation did. Understand this: power is not a clenched fist. It is an open palm that knows what to hold and what to let fall through. Boundaries appear, not as walls, but as edges that give your river a course. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop auditioning for roles in other people's dramas. You own your no without apology, and your yes becomes luminous because it is spare and sincere. And what of her? She begins to feel a silence where your constant music used to play. Not punishment, simply the accurate acoustics of reality. You are no longer the amplifier of her uncertainty. Without your attention as fuel, her choices belong to her, and yours to you. This is not revenge, it is release. The power shift is also a shift in authorship. The pen you handed to circumstance returns to your hand. You write mornings that match your values, evenings that restore your spirit. You design a life so quietly aligned that drama sounds foreign in its halls. Others may call it distance. You will know it as depth. Notice how dignity changes your posture. The spine remembers its architecture, the breath its cathedral. You do not stand over anyone, you stand within yourself. From there, love, should it arrive again, will not be a rescue operation. It will be a meeting of two whole people who can touch without trying to complete. This is the paradox. When you no longer seek to control, you become unshakable. When you stop trying to be chosen, you become deeply choosable, to yourself first, and then to those who recognize the quiet power of someone who has come home. Why does she return? Not because fate owes you symmetry, nor because the past finally learned its manners. She returns for the same reason a moth reappears at a window it cannot open. Something glows inside. When you stopped orbiting her, something curious happened. You began to radiate. Attention, once poured into absence, gathered like warm coals at the center of your chest. That warmth is not performance, it is presence. Presence is magnetic. People mistake the magnet for the metal, believing they want you, when what they are drawn to is the field you discovered in yourself. She returns when the economy of energy changes. Before, your attention was a free currency. She could spend it without earning it. Now, it has value because you invest it where life yields life. This creates a silence around you, a clean, uncluttered spaciousness. Into that space, echoes travel. She hears, perhaps faintly at first, that the song she once took for granted is playing somewhere else, in your mornings, in your work, in friendships that do not demand a mask. Curiosity follows. What changed? She comes to investigate the source of a peace she could not manufacture. There is also the gravity of familiarity. We are all pilgrims of comfort, returning to known doorways when the night gets cold. Your steadiness, the way you listened, the way you gave, was a small lighthouse in her weather. She may have left to outrun shadows only to discover they travel at her speed. When running fails, people circle back to the last place they felt illuminated. Understand, too, the psychology of unfinished patterns. The psyche prefers loops to leaps. A loop promises repetition. A leap demands transformation. Her return can be the loop's last attempt to stay alive. One more conversation, one more chapter written in the same ink. Not malice, simply momentum. But here is the liberating clarity. Her return speaks about her relationship to her own uncertainty more than it testifies about your worth. Your value did not increase because she noticed. She noticed because your value no longer begged to be seen. So what do you do when the knock comes? You breathe. You remember that love is invitation, not obligation. You can open the door with kindness and still keep your house in order. If her presence honors your boundaries, you will know by the lightness in your body. If it threatens the peace you've grown, you will know by the tightening in your chest. Wisdom is not a clever argument. It is a clear sensation. Let her return be a mirror, not a magnet. See what it reflects about your growth. You don't have to rewrite the old story to acknowledge the visitor at the door. Bow to the lesson. People are drawn not to possession, but to presence, not to control, but to calm. If she asks for your light, offer direction, not your flame. If she asks for your heart, make sure she has brought her own. Life is not what happens to you, it is how you meet what happens. When she returns, the question is not, what does she want? But, who are you now? Reaction is the reflex of yesterday. Response is the artistry of the present. Reaction grabs. Response notices, breathes, and chooses. Begin with a pause. A single conscious breath reclaims authorship. Feel the body's verdict before the mind's argument. The shoulders that rise, the chest that tightens, or the ease that spreads like warm light. The body does not negotiate. It tells the truth. Let that truth inform your words. Remember, kindness does not require access. You can be gracious without reopening the gate. A clear boundary is not a wall. It is a shoreline, porous to waves, faithful to land. Speak from that shoreline. You might say, I appreciate you reaching out. I'm committed to my peace now. Or, I'm willing to talk, but not to repeat the old pattern. Boundaries are loving when they serve both souls. They protect your growth and refuse to enable her avoidance. Your options are many, but they simplify into 3 doors. 1. No, not a tantrum, a clarity. No to the loop that cost you yourself. No explained kindly is a yes to life. 2. Not yet. If the heart needs time, give it. I'm not ready is wisdom's voice. Ripening cannot be rushed. 3. Yes, with conditions. Not as a bargain, but as a container. Honesty, therapy, accountability, space for your needs. Love is not a rescue mission. It is a practice with agreed rules. Notice the urge to score, to win back the dignity you felt you lost. Victory won at the price of your peace is defeat in disguise. Your response is strongest when it is simple, when it does not perform for an audience of ghosts. You owe no one a dramatic monologue. A few clean sentences aligned with your values are thunder enough. If you choose conversation, let listening be your compass. Hear not just her words, but her capacity. Is there ownership rather than blame? Consistency rather than bursts of promise? Change reveals itself in patterns, not proclamations. Trust time more than apology. Time cannot lie. And if the answer is no, let it be a blessing. Release is not cruelty, it is stewardship. You are tending a field that finally bears fruit, your attention, your mornings, your quiet joy. Guard it. The right people will not ask you to bulldoze your garden for their convenience. They will bring water and kneel beside you. In the end, your response is the ceremony by which you honor who you've become. It declares that love, for you, now means clarity, respect, and mutual tending. Whether the door closes, stays ajar, or opens anew, let it move on the hinges of self-respect. Then whatever follows is not a gamble. It is alignment. Beyond the return, beyond the choice, there is a wider meadow, the place where your life is no longer organized around one person's shadow. Moving on is not an act against her, it is an act for life. You step out of the tight corridor of us and into a spacious house with many rooms, work that matters, friendships that breathe, mornings that belong to you. To move beyond is to release the contract you wrote with pain. You stop asking the past to pay you back. You stop billing the present for yesterday's debts. The mind will try to keep the trial open, calling witnesses, replaying evidence. Smile gently and adjourn the court. The case is closed, Not because you won, but because the verdict is no longer relevant. Your freedom doesn't require her signature. Practice becomes your ally. Not grand vows, but ordinary faithfulness, a walk without headphones, a meal cooked slowly, a page written, a room tidied, the phone put down. These are not small things, they are stitches. The fabric of a steady life is woven from them. You are teaching the nervous system that safety can exist without her orbit. Slowly, you become a person to whom peace is natural, not negotiated. Gratitude appears in an unexpected form, not for the harm, but for the lesson its friction revealed. You learned your non-negotiables. You learned the feel of dignity in the body. You learned that love is not the loss of yourself, but the sharing of a self that you have met and tended. These lessons are portable. You carry them forward like clean water. Do not confuse closure with forgetting. You may always remember the color of that season, the song, the cafe, the late light on the wall. Memory is not a chain. It is a photograph in a book you no longer have to reread. Let it stay. It can live in you without running you. And what of love now? Let it find you while you are busy being true. Become so at home in your own company that partnership, if it comes, is a guest who contributes to the warmth, not a heater you huddle around. Two whole people make a third thing. A field neither owns, both tend. If a knock comes again, it will meet a house with windows open and boundaries clear. Moving beyond is not a sprint over pain. It is a step into presence. One breath, one choice, one honest yes, one clean no. You are not leaving something behind so much as returning to what was never absent, the quiet aliveness of being. The river of your life keeps flowing, and you are learning to float, to swim, to laugh with the sun on your face. Let this be your closing prayer, simple and sufficient. May I choose what nourishes. May I honor what is true. May I walk forward light and whole.